Welcome to another Chef Knives to Go Quick Look product review. I'm Steve Gamache, and this time we have the Masutani VG-1 Gyuto 180mm knife. So this line of knives, I've handled a few of them, and they really represent a very high value to price ratio. So these are composed of VG-1 full stainless steel. Heat treats around 60 Rockwell. Construction is a soft stainless cladding with some hammer marks on either side of that core steel. And the cladding looks like comes up over the top of the spine. So it's a very nice, attractive look to it with the hammering, and that helps a little bit with food release. You can see the kind of shoulder on the blade road is fairly sharp, so that gives you nice food release on these. The weight and dimensions will vary a little bit from knife to knife. This one's 141 grams or 5.0 ounces. Edge length about 185 millimeters, so pretty generous on the length. And you can see it's also pretty tall. So this has a little bit of a santoku-ish type feel to it in terms of the shape and the way it handles. But the edge length about 7.3 inches, overall length about 12.2 inches. The spine thickness is pretty much about 1.7. It's slightly thinner coming out of the handle, which is not uncommon, then about 1.7 all the way down. These don't have a lot of taper to them, but the grind is fairly generous, so the tip actually works pretty nicely on these. And then you can see the grind from the flats of the blade down to the edge, and you've got a fairly hard shoulder there. The grind is a little bit more generous on the left side than the right side, but these are pretty close to 50-50. They're very stiff blades. Quite sharp out of the box. I'll give them a good solid 6 out of 10. So they're ready to rock and roll out of the box. Let's take a look at it. So you can see the core steel showing through the cladding there at the edge. It's a nice look, and they've got some, it's not hand chiseled, but they've got an embossed kind of pressed in kanji, but it looks cool. It's close to a hand chiseled look, and while keeping the cost down, so it's a nice look. Left side of the blade is plain. You can see the hammering for sure, and it's just it's a good all-around performing knife. It's not, it's not a laser, but it's very respectable in the performance, and they get quite thin at the edge as well, so these do a nice job. The handles are partial tang, and you can see the tang doesn't go in too far. That keeps the weight down to help the balance point, and the handle it's fairly thin, but it's just kind of a easy to grip shape, not too big, not too small. If you've got smaller hands, this should work very, very nicely. And it helps keep the balance point reasonable, versus a full tang handle would bring the balance point way back on these. So there's your balance point, which is a little bit behind a pinch grip, but quite reasonable. So let's see. Let's take a look at the cutting board. So these have a little bit of polish to the spine, a little bit of polish to the choil, so nothing real objectionable or sharp, so they're pretty well just pull them out of the box and start working. They're quite sharp out of the box. So you can see the tip, you have a fairly aggressive belly towards the tip, so I can get fairly high on this without digging the tip in. So this will rock really well, and I can get pretty much about in there. So it rocks nicely. It's fairly curvy profile. Not a whole lot of flat, but we'll handle push-pull cuts, glide cuts nicely. Rocking. Not a lot of chopping, but it's not that long of a blade either. Loads of clearance. So, again, it's labeled Gyuto, but it's got kind of a santoku-ish look and kind of style to it, but yet it does rock pretty nicely as well. So this is a really, again, high value line of knives. So this is the Masutani VG-1 Gyuto 180mm knife.